to actually posting on Reddit. I normally just read, so I apologize if I'm not posting to the correct place. But this happened 7 years ago while I was living in a small town in Illinois. My youngest was only a few weeks old, so I was frequently having to wake up to feed him. So I ended up just sleeping downstairs, while my husband and 2 older children slept upstairs. I was woken up to someone knocking on the door. I was half asleep, and my only thought was getting to the door before it woke everyone else up. I was so sleep deprived, I definitely wasn't thinking straight. Otherwise, I never would have answered that door, especially so late at night. As I was heading to get it, my baby started to wake up, so I brought him with me. I opened up the door and there's a man standing there. I said, "How can I help you?" He just stands there for a second and doesn't say anything. At this point, I'm starting to finally wake up and enough to be observant and realize what's going on. I remember feeling like he seemed nervous, which made me nervous. All he said was,
"I'm sorry, I thought you ordered a pizza."
He then grabbed a box off the table off the porch and just walked away. I don't remember what was even said to him. Just closed the door and stood there feeling a bit strange, thinking about how weird that was. But then I told myself maybe he just had the wrong house. As I'm walking back into the living room, I saw the clock and my stomach dropped. It was a little after 2 a.m. There's no places around here that deliver that late. I went back to look outside, but I didn't see anyone, and there were no cars on the street. I made sure all the doors were locked. I just remember sitting there a little shaken, thinking about how weird that situation felt. Normally the pizza guy would just greet you and then tell you how much you owe. And all he said was, "I'm sorry, I thought you ordered a pizza." The box was not with him. I didn't see it until he grabbed it up off the table. The table was a few feet away from the door. If he had actually been holding it, I probably wouldn't even have asked him how I could help him. I would have just said, "Hey, this is the wrong house" or something. I also don't remember him wearing anything associated with any pizza place around here, or even a name tag. The only place nearby was a Pizza Hut, and this would have been around March or April, so it's possible he had a jacket on, but I don't really remember. But again, nothing was open that late, I'm sure about that. The nervous vibe I got from him still tells me something was off. What was he doing? And if he had bad intentions, I think he either saw that I had dogs, or maybe the baby changed his mind. Whenever I think about this, I get chills. I'm lucky nothing actually happened that night. This happened a long time ago, in the early 70s, on the rural outskirts of a small satellite town in Detroit. Back in those days, kids wandered freely, more or less without knowledge or fear of the dangers every child knows about these days. Stranger danger was not a thing, and it definitely wasn't taught in our schools. I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, a nearsighted, neglected girl child of parents too immersed in their own misery to bother with parenting. So I knew firsthand about how dangerous families could be, and I had no fear of strangers. I was walking home from the bus stop. I remember it was a warm, pleasant, sunny day. The road was a dirt one and solely residential, and all the houses were situated below the crown of a hill out of sight from the road itself. I was about a city block from home when a brown truck pulled up, looking, to my poor vision at least, like a UPS delivery van. Inside the truck, I could see 3 people. One was a girl in her 20s with long, straight blonde hair, who actually very much resembled my older sister or the girl on Mod Squad. It was a common look in those days. There was also a young man with the kind of dirty, bearded Jesus look that was just common at the time as well. And the third was just kind of shadowed, hard to make out inside the interior of the truck. One of them said,
"Hey, we have a package for your parents. Get in. Show us where your house is."
Though I had no fear of strangers at the time, I was a logical little cuss. When I did interact with adults, I usually annoyed them because I would just say it like it was. So I answered, "My parents' house is right there," pointing down the road. "You can follow me if you want to." They tried for several minutes to persuade me to get inside the delivery truck. I just couldn't understand why these stupid adults wouldn't simply just follow me a couple doors down so they could make their supposed delivery. I turned away from the truck and walked along the edge of the road toward my house, thinking they would follow me and deliver said package. But the van drove off. No delivery attempted. Now looking back, I realize that I don't remember seeing a UPS logo on that truck, though it was a brown delivery style vehicle. Back in those days, surplus bread delivery vans were a dime a dozen. I also realized that there would not be 3 people dressed in jeans in a real UPS truck, and I'm awful glad I never found out what they had planned for me that day. This happened quite a while ago, when I was home alone with just my dog. After all this time, I'm sure what happened was really just a strange occurrence, but I have no idea what this man actually wanted. I was watching TV one night around 11 p.m. when I heard a car pull up outside, and then the engine shut off. I figured it was just a neighbor, but my nosy dog wanted to have a look and went up to the window. He messed up the blinds when he went to look, so I got up to fix them. When I did, I noticed a car parked on the street across from my house and my neighbor's house. I couldn't really make out any of the details, but it looked like the driver was just sitting in there. Didn't really think anything of it and went back to watching TV. I then got a drink, and quite a while had passed since I'd fixed those blinds. I'm not exactly sure how long. I'd guess maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Out of nowhere, I thought I heard a tapping at the door. Not a knock, it was much lighter and very quiet. My dog sat up to look at the door, and I paused the TV when that same tapping started on the window. I opened up the blinds a little and saw a man just standing there. I couldn't quite make out his face properly, and he immediately walked back to the door and started tapping at it again. I know this doesn't sound very frightening, and I'm not sure why, but I suddenly got an awful feeling. I felt absolutely terrified, and I have no idea why. But the tapping at the door never stopped, and something in my head was just saying, if you open that door to him, something bad's gonna happen. I went upstairs to a window to ask what he wanted. It just felt a lot safer doing this. He said in a really quiet voice that he was delivering pizza and said how much it cost. I then felt stupid for being frightened and told him I didn't order a pizza. I guessed he was just speaking quietly and knocking lightly so he didn't disturb any neighbors. My dog had followed me upstairs and was letting out this odd growl and bark, which isn't really usual for him. I was trying to shush him when the man downstairs told me he had the correct address and I better get downstairs now, and opened up the door and pay for what I owed and collect my food before it got cold. Then I got really confused because again, I definitely didn't order a pizza. And just as I began telling him that, I noticed he didn't even have a pizza. He wasn't even carrying anything. Nothing at all. Once more, I said, dude, you got the wrong address, and he got really angry. He kept telling me to open the door. He was going back and forth between angry and sort of trying to persuade me to go back downstairs. So I then asked him, okay, where's the pizza at? He said he had a hold of it. It was really dark outside, but he definitely didn't have anything in his hands. My dog was now really making quite a bit of a fuss, and the stranger had turned into a broken record.
Come downstairs, open the door. Come downstairs, open the door.
All this noise had to have alerted my neighbor, who finally did open his front door. The man didn't say a word, he just practically ran back across the street to his car that I had heard pull up a while ago. He went back to the car empty-handed. I have no idea what he wanted, but he certainly was not a delivery driver. It really freaked me out, especially since my dog is quite obviously a large breed. The man definitely saw him through the window, and he wasn't deterred at all. It definitely seems even stranger and less random that he actually drove up to my house, as though he planned on showing up. I'm 22 and a female, and I'm a ship shopper and mostly work nights because that's when most orders are available. I generally only accept orders in the zone closest to my home. One night, I decided to do one last order with the delivery window between 10 and 11 p.m., but there weren't any available in my normal zone, so I figured I'd just pick one up on the other side of town to close out my day. During my shop, there were lots of things on this customer's list that were out of stock, and he had specified on his account that he'd like to be contacted in that specific situation. I was shopping for him for around 30 to 40 minutes and sent him around 10 different texts about things that needed substitutes, and did not receive an answer until I was ready to check out, and had reached out to him one last time to let him know that that's what was happening. He finally did respond and told me just to use my best judgment, to which I replied, no problem. Fast forward to having all his items bagged up and in my car. I sent him a text letting him know that I was headed his way and that I'd be there in about 15 minutes, as I always do for all my customers. I get to a street, and I already kind of noticed that it isn't the best part of town, and I'm thinking, okay, no problem, just make it a quick drop off and get back home. When I get to the house, the driveway is completely on the left side of the house, and there's a porch on the right corner that leads to the front door. So I can't see the door from the driveway, and nobody could see that I was in the driveway if they were at the door. I could see that there's multiple porch lights as well as lights around the house leading up to the front door, but none of them are turned on. Now mind you, I have told this person I was on my way, gave him my estimated timeline, and pressed a button in the Shipt app to notify him that I had arrived. At this point, I'm feeling a knot in my stomach and my hair is starting to stand up a little bit. Before I got out of my car, I sent a text to my boyfriend telling him that I was feeling really uncomfortable about this situation, and the house itself was creeping me out. If he didn't hear from me soon saying that I was on my way home, then that something was wrong. This person ordered a lot of stuff, and it was just me doing that delivery. So it took me 3 separate trips to the porch and back to my car to get everything out. I'd grab as much as I could for the first trip, went to the porch to set the groceries by the door, and then went back to my car for the next load without knocking and making minimal noise. When I got to the porch to drop off the second load, I got up to the second step before looking out to make sure I could see where I was going in the dark, and realized that the front door was now wide open, and there was a man just standing there staring at me. He also didn't turn on any lights inside the house, aside from what looked like maybe a single light fixture 3 rooms away. So there was just a faint back glow behind him, and I could only see his silhouette but nothing of his face, or even what he was wearing. Completely shocked, I just blurted out, hello, how are you? He stood there and said nothing, didn't reach for the bags, just continued to stare at me. I dropped those bags off and went back to my car to get the remaining groceries. I didn't even make it up all the way to the porch steps before dropping his groceries and turning around to run back to my car because he was still just standing there in the doorway looking at me. This was pretty much it. Kind of anticlimactic, I know, and I didn't get tipped on that order, but I'd like to consider the fact that I made it home that night my tip. Needless to say, I haven't shopped in that area again since. When I was in college, I got a job delivering pizzas late at night. Typically, I would work until around 2 a.m. It was a shitty job, and the shop itself was extremely dirty, unsanitary, and falling apart. But I actually made really good tips, so it made it kind of worth it. I'm female, and I was 19 at the time. It was a summer in Colorado, so even at night, it's still fairly warm. This is important detail for later. This was only my second weekend on the job, and I was still getting used to it. I also need to note that I'm already a paranoid person, so I prefer just dropping off the pizza, taking my tip, and then leaving right away for the next delivery. I would never go inside a person's house, and if I did, it was just to step inside really quick, but leave the door itself open. It was pretty close to midnight when I got another delivery to a house on the east side of town. It was supposed to be my last delivery of the night. I pulled up to the house and looked pretty normal from the outside. The street was really dark and I didn't feel uncomfortable. I walked up to the door and knocked. This big, shirtless dude with a beer belly answers the door and tells me to come inside. I get weird vibes immediately off of him, and I declined to come in and just tried to give him his pizza right there. But then he goes,
Come inside. It's freezing out. We don't want the cold air coming in.
This didn't make sense to me. It's summer. So stupidly I get nervous and take one step inside. Not going all the way in though. He then says,
No, come all the way in. It's cold out.
I should have left at this point, but I was freaking out and not thinking straight. So I went in, and he closed both the screen door and the main door behind me. I'm trying to calm myself down and telling myself, okay, you're just overreacting. He then yells to his wife that the pizza's here. I can see her in the kitchen cooking, which seemed weird that she ordered a pizza and was also cooking, but I don't know. I look around their living room and it's filled to the brim with stuffed animals, completely covering the couches, the tables, windowsills, everything. This just added to the really weird vibe. Then his wife comes into the living room holding something outstretched in her hand. She walks up to me and I see that it's some kind of bread or cake, and then she says,
Eat this banana bread. Oh, don't worry, it's not poisonous.
I try politely to decline, lying and saying I'm on a diet. She just glares at me, still with her hand outstretched, waiting for me to take the bread. I do not take it. She then gets really upset and starts yelling at me to eat the bread. Again, I decline. But this time, I'm not trying to be polite about it and tell the couple that I really gotta get going and get back to work. And I'm still holding the pizza too, and thinking about just running out the door at this point. She finally gives up on trying to make me eat that bread and then walks back into the kitchen. Then the man is like,
Let me find some change for your tip.
He starts looking all around the living room, digging through the couch cushions, trying to find the change to give me. I tell him, look, just forget it. I don't need the tip, and he can just take the pizza. But he insists on finding a tip for me. He then spends the next several minutes searching his stuffed animal infested living room for small change. I start to think to myself that they're trying to just stall me. Most people have the tip ready when I get to their house. I'm so worked up at this point that I just tell the dude I'm leaving and start to open the door. He took his pizza and gave me a few quarters that he had found. I booked it out of there and went back to the shop. When I got back, I told my supervisor what happened, and he didn't seem to care at all. He just sent me on another delivery. I was pissed. I don't know if that couple was actually creepy or just really socially awkward, but I never delivered to that house ever again. Hey everyone, thanks for listening if you stuck around to this point. If you haven't yet, feel free to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell to be notified when future episodes come out. If you have a true scary story of your own, feel free to send it to my email or post it to my subreddit. You can stalk me on Twitter, you can stalk me on Facebook, and you can also stalk me on Instagram. All these links are below. What up, everybody? It's been a couple more days, but I think this episode actually came out a little sooner than they normally do between, episodes. So hopefully it's good. I have noticed and talked with a lot of narrators in the horror community, and I think it's kind of just one of those things where we finally have a summer where we're not in locked up or not in lockdown. So, and the restrictions on COVID have been basically lifted up completely. So I think everybody's just not inside and doing shit, which is completely understandable because I'm kind of doing the same thing. So that's why nobody's really listening, and listenership and views are way down across the board. So hopefully whoever is listening to this enjoyed it, or if you're listening to it later on, I hope you enjoyed it as well. The delivery stories is another one of my favorite topics that I've heard throughout this community that I've listened to narrators over the years, so I wanted to do another one of my own. I've got a couple of old ones like from way back and they sound like ass, so definitely wanted to redo this one and do it some justice. But next episode is gonna be the true scary stories. I've already got a bunch of stuff lined up for that one. Should be a nice decently long episode too, probably around 30 minutes, maybe more. So be on the lookout for that. Also, I am about to not necessarily launch, but I'm going to be doing a podcast, and I think it's going to be really fucking rad. Got a cool idea. Don't think too many people are going to be doing or have done this in the past, at least in the horror narration community. So that's something that's going to be coming out halfway within the next few weeks, I'd say. I got my first guest lined up, and we're gonna it's a big fucking big name. So I think people are gonna be stoked, myself as well. So again, be on the lookout for that, and I think that is it. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Cheers.